So I'm gonna be hitting the road and heading back for the holidays. I'm leaving this cozy little campground. So let's go. Hey y'all, my name is Sarah. I live in my 1991 self-built vintage van named Eva, where I travel slow and study the stars. Welcome to my home and channel. Wow, it has been a few days since making it back home, and things have been very, very energetic and really, really cold, which is something I don't do well with, but I have my hot water bottle heater right here. I'll keep that in my lap, and the diesel heater is also going, which will warm this place up pretty fast because it's well insulated and very tiny. So yeah. I have been visiting my incredibly spread out family, which consists of going to 5 different households to try and see and be with everyone in a very short amount of time. And it's just been a little chaotic because of the holidays, but it's been nice having this space to reconnect, considering that I've been living in a very rural, southern, small countryside where not much socialization has been going on for the last couple months. Also, while I'm in town, I do have to address some maintenance on the van. Simple things like my oil change and filters replaced, to something a little bit more challenging where I have to go to a mechanic for, which is a power steering leak. There's a specific shop in this town that I had work done in the past, but they never resolved the issue. But there is a warranty on the parts and labor. While I'm here, I definitely need to get that repaired. And speaking of maintenance, I'm actually visiting my dad's, and we just finished replacing my fuel filter, which is very important to do on diesel rigs because you want to make sure your injectors are clean, and they recommend every 10,000 miles, but honestly I do mine every 3,000 mile oil change because it really prolongs the life of the engine, and I'm saving so much money by not going to a shop to get it done that it kind of justifies the replacement. Also, my dad makes the best sourdough. I've never really learned because he loves baking them and I enjoy what he makes, and I also don't have a traditional oven in the van, but last night I did take a bread lesson from him because Jesse's new camper does have an oven, and I'm really excited to start perfecting my own sourdough. And I have had a starter for a little while where I will use it to make cookies and banana bread, simple things. But now I'm excited to get into baking actual loaves of sourdough bread. So yeah, that's the update, and I better get started on my to-do list. Next on the agenda is getting oil and an oil filter to get that job done. As much as it seems a chore in the beginning, changing the oil in Eva is actually kind of fun. The amount of clearance that she has always lends to the ease of getting this job done, and honestly, one thing I've learned about getting your oil changed at the fast-paced shops is that you do run the risk of them working a little too fast, carelessly over-tightening your oil bolt, causing it to strip, which leads to a bigger problem of ruining your oil pan, which is something that I have experienced. When I'm traveling, it's harder to change my own oil, and so I've had to go to different mechanic shops over time, and through that, my oil bolt actually did strip. But in order to replace the oil pan in this rig, I would have to drop the entire engine, and it would be an extremely expensive job. So instead I went to a mechanic I trust in town to get the pan rethreaded for a larger bolt. but man, overall, it still was a stressor. So ultimately, I only trust this one garage and myself to get the job done right. Though in comparison to doing the job myself, I really do save a ton of money. The mechanic shop's quote for an oil and fuel filter change is around $363.72, but by doing the work at home, I paid a total of $122 for parts and a little bit of effort in order to save $241, which is a pretty penny. And once I get to this part, it's just smooth sailing. The dirty oil is replaced with fresh, and it truly makes me feel so much lighter. Honestly, there's just something about this process that helps me to shift my mindset as well. It's almost easier to let go of metaphorical old baggage and create the space to continue to clean and replenish my own energy also. It has been such a nice holiday being on the coast and seeing everyone, but it actually hasn't been that relaxing. Being around so many people has really tapped out my reservoir of social energy. So this is me taking a quick hot cocoa break to myself before I get back into my other to-dos while in town. So recently, I've been really trying to wrap my mind around the concept and feeling of freedom in times where life creates heavy constraints and limitations. And surely life does have a funny way of presenting things that feel like they get in the way of what we're trying to accomplish, whether it be basic things like daily chores or finances to larger instances like breakdowns or health issues. There are some days or even chapters of my journey where I just don't feel satisfied with how fast the time has passed and wish that if only I had more time or less things to worry about, I'd feel content. Because at the end of the day, isn't freedom the ability to feel sovereign over your time? There is no simple answer to try and solve this dilemma, but there is a saying that I have come to revisit every so often. What entangles you is karma, and what liberates you is dharma. Over the years of studying the art of astrology, in relation to my time here, I've come across the theory of the lunar nodes. Specifically, they are 2 points where the moon's path crosses the Earth's ecliptic. But what they resemble symbolically is what helps me in rationalizing this saying and finding a little breath of freedom in those challenging times. The placement of the 2 nodes, both north and south, are specific to each of us. The north resembles our dharma, or the work or service that we are here to do in order to grow, and the south resembles our karma, the past lives we have mastered and talents we can draw from, and sometimes our all too comfortable comfort zones. So yes, it's true that when living too much in your south node, you can sometimes feel this entanglement or fixation on going in circles without ever feeling a sense of accomplishment, which is why the north node is also thought of as the North Star. It's our internal compass helping us to grow by leaning into the barriers and overcoming the challenges we face. And with the 2 working in tandem, it can help bring a sense of balance to our journey here. So, all in all, it's a roundabout way of saying that sometimes when we step back from what feels heavy and look at the bigger picture, we can find that sense of purpose and therefore our passion to keep going amidst the trials. I just turned the heat on to warm up a little bit while I'm just waiting. I also made some hot chocolate earlier, so my kettle is warm enough to hold in my hands. Yeah, okay, so the situation is that this shop is first come, first serve, so you really have to be here before they open in the line that develops about 30 minutes before they open at 7:30. So I got in line around 7. You'll have to excuse me. Still getting over a sickness that I got from the holidays. This is the second day getting here to the mechanics to hopefully get this leak fixed and just finalized. I got the power steering pump replaced back in March. This has been 10 months ago. And I would drive it and then it would still leak. And I've come back to the same mechanic and then they said it was the gearbox, and so that was an expensive repair that I had to get replaced. And then after that it was still leaking and so I came back and then they tightened the bolts. I came back a number of times. I'm gonna say this is like my 7th time here driving to this mechanic to get this work completed. Hopefully going to be finalized today. I'm like fingers crossed and really adamant now about them actually just replacing the whole part instead of just tightening the bolt. Yeah, I believe that when they tightened the bolt in the beginning they cracked the reservoir, or either the reservoir was faulty when they first put it in, so it's just always leaked. This is my second day here because I came yesterday in order to see that it is indeed leaking. They put a dye in it. I drove it for a few blocks. It started leaking immediately. I have a black light in the van, which is kind of convenient. I just actually got it for Christmas. Someone just gave me their old black light. But I was able to find the UV dye that it indeed was leaking on the back of the reservoir. So yeah, now here we are, we're waiting for the parts, and I'll wait in the van until they get the parts and then pull it into the bay, and then I'll go wait in the lobby. But I do have family close by, but they are kind of busy, so I'm not gonna really ask anyone to come get me. This is just the thing. This is what happens. So I'm gonna enjoy my hot chocolate and go work on my computer. It was a full day of waiting for the power steering repair to be completed, but I'm so thankful they were able to get it done within the workday so that I could have my home back for the evening. So far, I have not seen any leaks, and they also replaced the 2 hoses free of charge for the inconvenience of the nearly a year's ongoing issue. If this repair works this time, I'm going to be so elated to not have to constantly refill my power steering fluid as well. But that concludes the maintenance I needed to do for this trip, so after tonight, I'll be able to head back up to the countryside to be with Jessie and the kitties. Beforehand, I'm going to make a large pot of a warming, savory lentil soup. This is a staple dish which I always return to and incorporates just a few simple ingredients. This has definitely been one of my favorite things to do. Cooking in general can be one of the best forms of hands-on therapy, especially when I have to be focused on the task at hand. Getting comfortable with using different spices and herbs to dress up simple produce really adds to the fun of it, and getting to share what we create is probably the most rewarding part. I've learned when it comes to cooking in such a tiny space, it's always nice to make enough for leftovers, so that way you don't get burnt out on cooking all the time for every meal, because sometimes it's nice to just warm things up versus assemble everything when you have limited resources like water and propane. But it does make you appreciate simple things, that's for sure. So y'all, I have to say over the last 7 years, I sometimes get messages from those interested in my van, and honestly, there have been times I do consider listing my little Zen den for sale in order to move on to the next adventure, either to find a little plot of land or to try something completely different. And the day will eventually come, but I really hope I find the right person to take care of and enjoy this special rig. Eva is a classic vehicle, and as a diesel with little mileage, she definitely has the bones to last. It's just a really hard decision to make, but for now, I'll enjoy her while I can. And that's really it, guys. Thank you so much for joining me in another video, and I'll catch y'all on the next one.